There's a fascinating paradox in human biology. Your body was built to move for hours, yet modern life has trained it to tire in minutes. Evolution shaped us to be endurance machines, to walk, carry, and persist long after our energy should run out. In fact, some anthropologists argue that humans are the most physically enduring species on Earth. Not the fastest, not the strongest, but the most persistent. We were designed for distance. And yet, today, fatigue sets in quickly. Extra weight clings stubbornly. Our bodies, meant for motion, now struggle with stillness-induced dysfunction. The disconnect isn't just physical, it's neurological and psychological. Because endurance and fat metabolism aren't just about what happens in your muscles, they're driven by your brain. What if I told you that your ability to build endurance and lose fat comes down to a few modifiable systems in your brain and body? Systems we can train, not with willpower alone, but with specific tools that align with how your physiology actually works. For example, your perception of effort, how hard something feels, isn't just a reflection of muscle fatigue. It's regulated by a region of your brain called the anterior cingulate cortex. When that system gets overwhelmed, your brain tells you to stop long before your body needs to. But here's the empowering part. This system is highly trainable, meaning you can actually shift your brain's threshold for effort, making hard things feel easier if you understand how to engage it. This episode is about bridging the science and the strategy. Because building endurance and losing fat is not a matter of punishment, but of precision. It's about working with, not against, your biology. Here's what we'll unpack. Why endurance is as much a brain game as a body game. How to train your metabolism to burn fat more efficiently, even at rest. Simple breathing protocols that boost oxygen delivery and delay fatigue. The real science behind zone 2 cardio and why it's your endurance superpower. What happens in your brain when you push through discomfort and how to reframe it. And the best time of day to train if fat loss is your goal. By the end, you'll have a neuroscience-backed protocol for building a body that resists fatigue, burns fat more effectively, and keeps going long after your old limits would have stopped you. When most people think about endurance, they think of muscles. The legs in a marathon, the lungs on a long hike, the heart pounding during a workout. But the truth is, endurance starts and often ends in the brain. Your brain has a built-in limiter. It's designed to protect you from pushing too hard, too fast, for too long. This system lives primarily in an area called the anterior cingulate cortex, ACC, a region responsible for monitoring internal signals like heart rate, muscle tension, and body temperature. It integrates all this feedback and outputs a simple feeling, this is hard, maybe stop. That's what we experience as fatigue. But here's what's fascinating and empowering. Research shows that this perception of effort is not a fixed truth. It's a modifiable sensation. In other words, your brain decides how hard something feels before your body actually reaches its physical limit. Take a 2012 study from the University of Kent. Researchers gave cyclists either a carbohydrate drink or a placebo during intense rides, but here's the twist. Some participants only rinsed with the carb drink. They didn't swallow it. Still, performance improved. Why? Because even the perception of available fuel changed how hard the effort felt. The brain, detecting energy in the mouth, eased its effort signal and the body responded. This is where your real endurance potential lives, in training the brain's perception system, and like any system, it responds to progressive, deliberate challenge. A simple tool you can use is rate of perceived exertion mapping. Choose an exercise like walking, cycling, or rowing, and spend 2 to 3 sessions simply observing when the activity begins to feel mentally difficult, at what minute mark, under what conditions. Then across the next few weeks, aim to extend that point by just 2 to 5%. The goal isn't maximum speed, it's shifting the threshold where effort feels overwhelming. That's brain training. Another powerful protocol, non-sleep deep rest, NSDR sessions after training. Studies show that deliberate rest protocols, such as yoga nidra or guided body scans, reduce neural fatigue and replenish dopamine, helping your brain tolerate more effort in the future. Endurance isn't just built during the workout. It's built during recovery when the brain resets its limits. Here's a practical analogy. Imagine your brain is the governor on a car engine. It doesn't let you hit max speed even if the engine could handle it. But with consistent exposure, clear feedback, and proper rest, you can reprogram that governor. You can make your brain trust your body more. And this is the real game changer, because when your brain stops pulling the brakes too early, your body goes further with less fight, less friction, and less fear. Up next, we'll dive into the science of Zone 2 cardio, the single most overlooked metabolic gear for building endurance and burning fat more effectively. And if this insight is helping you, consider subscribing. There's more where this came from. If you could train just one system in your body to improve fat loss, increase stamina, lower your risk of disease, and even slow cellular aging, it would be your mitochondria. These are the powerhouses inside your cells that produce energy. The better they function, the more efficiently your body runs, and the best way to train them, Zone 2 cardio. Zone 2 refers to a specific level of aerobic intensity, low to moderate, just below the point where breathing becomes noticeably labored. You can still talk in full sentences, but you're clearly exercising. Think brisk walking, easy cycling, rowing, or swimming. Not a sprint, not a slog, something in between. The key here is that Zone 2 targets mitochondrial density and function, the exact systems responsible for sustained energy production and fat oxidation. In a 2021 review published in Cell Metabolism, researchers highlighted that Zone 2 exercise increases the number of mitochondria in muscle tissue and enhances their ability to burn fat instead of glucose. More mitochondria, better energy, both during exercise and at rest. Here's why that matters for fat loss. Your body prefers to use glucose during intense workouts, but in Zone 2, the effort level is just low enough that your body shifts toward using fat as its primary fuel source. This makes it one of the most metabolically efficient zones to train in, especially if your goal is sustainable fat loss without hormonal burnout. A simple framework is this. Aim for 2 to 4 sessions of Zone 2 cardio per week, each lasting 45 to 60 minutes. If you're short on time, even 20, 30 minutes can begin building the adaptation. The goal is consistency, not intensity. You're not chasing sweat. You're training your cells. Want to know if you're truly in Zone 2? Try this. If you can nose breathe and talk in full sentences while moving, you're likely there. You can also use a heart rate guideline, roughly 60-70% of your estimated max heart rate, which you can estimate as 220 minus your age. But subjective breath and speech are often even more reliable. Another powerful tool, fasted Zone 2 training once or twice a week. When done safely, especially in the morning, this nudges your metabolism to rely more on stored fat. Your insulin is low, your glycogen is modest, and your body learns to mobilize fat more efficiently. Just be sure to hydrate well and don't overdo it. It's a metabolic signal, not a punishment. Let's make this more concrete. Picture your mitochondria like mini engines in every cell. When you train in Zone 2, you're tuning those engines for fuel efficiency. Over time, they burn cleaner, last longer, and waste less energy, which translates into real-world endurance and leaner body composition. And perhaps most importantly, Zone 2 helps build the base layer of your physical capacity. Without it, pushing harder, like in HIIT, or weight training often leads to burnout, not breakthrough. With it, you recover faster, perform longer, and adapt better. Before we move on to the next section, I want to offer you something. If this kind of science-driven, actionable content is resonating, consider liking this video or subscribing to the channel. We're building a community of people serious about improving their health from the inside out using real tools backed by real science. I'd love for you to be part of it. Coming up next, how to train your metabolism to prefer burning fat, even when you're not exercising, using a concept called metabolic flexibility. What if your body could choose to burn fat efficiently, not just during workouts, but throughout the day, even at rest? That's not just a fitness fantasy. It's a biological capacity called metabolic flexibility, and it may be the single biggest key to sustained fat loss and long-term energy. Here's the core idea. Your body has two primary fuel systems, one that runs on glucose, carbohydrates, and one that runs on fat, lipids. A metabolically healthy person can easily switch between these depending on activity, energy needs, and food intake. But modern diets, chronic stress, and a lack of movement have made most people metabolically rigid, stuck in sugar burning mode. When you're metabolically inflexible, your body resists burning fat. You crash between meals. You feel sluggish without carbs. You struggle to lose weight even with exercise. But here's the empowering truth. Metabolic flexibility is trainable, and the tools to improve it are surprisingly simple. Let's start with a study published in the Journal of Clinical Investigation, 2015, where researchers found that high fat oxidation at rest was one of the strongest predictors of long-term fat loss, independent of calorie restriction. In other words, it's not just how much you burn during a workout, it's how your body fuels itself all day. One of the most powerful tools to build this capacity is called nutritional periodization. That means varying your macronutrient intake to strategically train both your fat burning and carb burning systems. For example, you might eat lower carb meals on rest days or during light cardio days and consume more carbohydrates around intense workouts to fuel performance. This cyclical approach teaches your metabolism to shift gears efficiently, like training a hybrid engine. Another tool, fasted movement. Not necessarily fasted training, but simple low-intensity activity like walking, mobility, or light cycling after waking up. In the fasted state, insulin is low and your body is primed to use fat for fuel. You're not trying to burn a massive number of calories here. You're teaching your metabolism to reach for fat first. Sleep also plays a surprisingly important role. Poor sleep reduces metabolic flexibility by altering your insulin sensitivity and increasing cravings for high sugar foods. In fact, a study from the Annals of Internal Medicine found that sleep-deprived individuals lost more lean mass and less fat, even on the same diet, compared to those who slept adequately. Fat loss isn't just what you eat or how you train, it's how well your system is regulated. Here's a simple protocol to apply this. 3 to 5 mornings per week, go for a 20-30-minute fasted walk or gentle bike ride. Match carbs to activity. More carbs around training, fewer on rest days. Sleep 7.59 hours per night, ideally on a consistent schedule to stabilize your circadian rhythm. Once per week, try a longer zone 2 cardio session in a fasted state for deeper fat adaptation. An analogy that helps. Imagine your metabolism is a hybrid car. Glucose is the gas, fat is the electricity. If you only ever run on gas, your battery weakens. But if you train both systems, with movement, sleep, and strategic fuel intake, you become a fuel flexible machine, capable of both endurance and efficiency. And the real payoff? You stop chasing energy. You create it from your own fat stores, no crash required. Next up, we'll explore a surprising lever you can pull to multiply endurance and resilience. And it doesn't come from training harder, it comes from breathing better. Specifically nasal breathing and carbon dioxide tolerance. Two overlooked tools for supercharging oxygen use and calming the nervous system. If I told you that one of the fastest ways to increase your endurance, reduce fatigue, and improve fat oxidation didn't require lifting a single weight or running a single step, but simply changing how you breathe, would you believe it? Here's what the research shows. Most people are over breathing. They breathe through the mouth too fast, too shallow, especially under stress or during exercise. This leads to something called low carbon dioxide, CO2, tolerance, which paradoxically reduces oxygen delivery to your cells. The result, early fatigue, shallow recovery, and less metabolic efficiency. It's a physiological paradox called the Bohr effect, first described by Christian Bohr in 1904. It tells us that oxygen is delivered to tissues more effectively when carbon dioxide levels are higher. CO2 isn't just a waste gas. It's the trigger that tells red blood cells to release oxygen. When we overbreathe and blow off too much CO2, oxygen stays bound and doesn't reach the muscles or brain as efficiently. That's where nasal breathing comes in. Breathing through your nose, especially during exercise, filters air, adds resistance, increases nitric oxide production, a vasodilator that improves blood flow, and crucially, helps retain more CO2. This conditions your body to tolerate higher CO2 levels, which increases oxygen efficiency, endurance, and resilience under physical stress. A 2018 study in the International Journal of Exercise Science found that athletes who trained using nasal breathing had lower respiratory rates, reduced perceived exertion, and better oxygen utilization compared to those who mouth breathed. It wasn't just about airflow, it was about efficiency. Here's a simple tool, CO2 tolerance breath holds. Each morning or before a workout, breathe normally for a minute, then exhale and hold your breath for as long as is comfortably possible. Time it. This is your CO2 tolerance score. Over time, as this score increases, so does your ability to buffer fatigue, stay calm under pressure, and deliver oxygen when it matters. A practical protocol: during zone 2 cardio, try to nasal breathe the entire time. If you're weight training, inhale through the nose, exhale with control through the mouth. Do 1, 2 breath hold drills per day before training or during a walk. Track your CO2 tolerance score over 2-4 weeks. Most people see significant gains simply from consistent nasal breathing during daily activity. Think of it like tuning a car's fuel injection system. You're not just pushing harder, you're optimizing how energy is delivered. And the changes show up everywhere. Longer workouts, calmer recovery, better focus, and even improved sleep. Bonus benefit: nasal breathing downregulates the sympathetic nervous system, shifting you out of fight or flight and into rest and digest. That means better fat metabolism, better digestion, and better recovery. And if you've found these insights valuable so far, I'd be honored if you'd like this video or leave a comment below. It helps the algorithm, yes, but more importantly, it helps others find practical, science-driven tools that actually improve their life. We're building something real here. Next, we'll explore how resistance training, when approached the right way, amplifies endurance, accelerates fat loss, and protects the brain. It's not just about building muscle. It's about becoming more metabolically and neurologically resilient. It's tempting to think of endurance and fat loss as domains ruled purely by cardio, long runs, long rides, more sweat, more burn. And yes, aerobic training plays a critical role, but here's what the science makes crystal clear. If you're not strength training, you're leaving massive fat burning and endurance potential on the table. Let's look at why. First, resistance training is the most effective way to build and preserve lean muscle mass. And muscle is metabolically expensive tissue. The more muscle you carry, the more energy your body burns at rest. It's not a myth, it's basic biochemistry. Research from Harvard Medical School and the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition shows that resistance training increases resting metabolic rate and improves insulin sensitivity, both key factors in long-term fat loss. But Beyond muscle mass, something deeper is happening. When you lift, especially with compound full body movements like squats, deadlifts, or push-ups, you trigger the release of powerful hormones and molecular messengers. Myokines are released by contracting muscles. They have systemic effects, reducing inflammation, increasing fat oxidation, and even improving brain function. One myokine in particular, irisin, has been shown to convert white fat into metabolically active brown fat, the kind of fat that actually burns energy. And here's the endurance connection. Resistance training increases mitochondrial density, especially when performed with moderate reps, 6-15, and shorter rest intervals, 30-60 seconds. Mitochondria are the power plants of your cells. More mitochondria means greater endurance capacity, not just in your legs, but in your entire system. A 2022 review in Frontiers in Physiology found that adding 2-3 days of resistance training to an aerobic training protocol led to significant increases in VO2 max, lactate threshold, and fat metabolism, all without increasing total training volume. In other words, it made the same amount of training go further. Here's a practical way to integrate this. 2-3 times per week, perform full body resistance training, focus on compound lifts, use moderate weights, 8-12 reps, and keep rest periods short, under 60 seconds, to increase metabolic and mitochondrial demand. Add one metabolic finisher, a 5-10 minute high-intensity circuit of body weight or kettlebell movements to spike post-exercise oxygen consumption epoch, which keeps fat burning elevated for hours. An example finisher: 30-second goblet squats, 30-second push-ups, 30-second mountain climbers, 30-second rest, repeat 3-4 rounds. Think of it like this. Cardio builds the engine, but strength training builds the frame, the system that holds and fuels that engine efficiently. And there's a psychological bonus too. Resistance training improves dopamine tone, the motivational and drive neurochemical, by building self-efficacy. When you lift something heavy, you send a signal to your nervous system: I can handle challenge. That signal isn't just physical, it transfers to every part of your life. In the next section, we'll explore the invisible yet powerful driver behind sustained fat loss and performance: behavioral consistency. Specifically, how to master habits, environment, and identity to make these tools actually stick for life. You can have the perfect workout split, the best breathing protocol, the most optimized nutrition plan, but if you can't show up for them repeatedly, reliably, especially on the hard days, none of it matters. This is where most people fall short, not because they're weak, but because they're relying on motivation, which is fragile. It spikes and crashes. It's great for starting, terrible for sustaining. The research shows behavioral consistency isn't about willpower. It's about structure, identity, and emotion. Let's unpack that. First, structure. In behavioral psychology, the cue, routine, reward loop, popularized by Charles Duhigg's The Power of Habit and rooted in the research of B.J. Fogg and others, shows us that habits thrive in predictable environments. That means if your workouts are whenever I feel like it, they're unlikely to last. But if they're 7 a.m. after coffee, gym clothes on the chair, playlist cued, the chances of follow through skyrocket. Simple tool. Tie your endurance or strength session to an existing anchor, like walking to the gym right after you brush your teeth or doing breath work right after your morning coffee. The less decision-making required, the better. Second, identity. James Clear writes, every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. This is more than motivational fluff. Neuroimaging studies from the University of Southern California show that identity-based habits, the ones that are tied to how we see ourselves, activate the brain's default mode network, the system linked to self-reflection and long-term planning. So instead of saying, I want to work out more, say, I am the kind of person who trains consistently, even when it's inconvenient. Anchor it to who you are becoming, not just what you're doing. Third, and most overlooked, is emotion. We don't remember what's efficient. We remember what feels good. Dopamine, the molecule of motivation, spikes when effort is paired with meaning, when we can see the connection between action and progress. If you only focus on the scale or the mirror, you'll miss the deeper wins. So here's a powerful reframe. Track what you want to become more of. Did you follow through on your plan today? Did you recover with intention? Did you breathe through discomfort? Each yes is a vote for your future self. And if you fall off, because you will, we all do, make the goal getting back on track faster, not never falling at all. The difference between the 1% who sustain results and the 99% who start over again and again, it's not discipline, it's the ability to recover from inconsistency without judgment. If this insight resonates, I invite you to subscribe and join this growing community. We're not chasing hacks, we're building systems. We're rewiring behavior through science and showing up for something deeper than appearance, for capability, resilience, and freedom. Next up, the conclusion. We'll tie together the 6 scientific levers of endurance and fat loss and offer one simple challenge to help you take action today. Let's pause for a moment and zoom out. We've covered a lot of ground, not just tips, but principles rooted in real science and built for real life. These tools are not abstract. They're systems designed to rewire your physiology and psychology in ways that endure. So let's recap. We began by looking at Zone 2 cardio, the unsung hero of endurance, a steady, sustainable approach to building mitochondrial capacity, fat oxidation, and cardiovascular health. We explored the metabolic power of training fasted, paired with smart fueling strategies post-workout to optimize fat loss while protecting muscle. We learned that sleep is not optional. It's the master switch that regulates hormones, recovery, and metabolic efficiency. Without it, everything else breaks down. We tapped into the power of nasal breathing and CO2 tolerance, using ancient physiology to unlock modern performance and fat metabolism. We reframed resistance training, not as something separate from endurance, but as its amplifier, a metabolic accelerator, a brain and body builder. And finally, we dove deep into behavioral consistency, because without structure, identity, and emotion, without systems that make action automatic, even the best protocols collect dust. So here's the truth. Building endurance and losing fat isn't about doing everything at once. It's about doing one thing on purpose consistently. Pick your lever, just one. Maybe it's walking for 30 minutes at a conversational pace. Zone 2 every morning this week. Maybe it's switching to nasal breathing during your next workout. Maybe it's cutting off food 2 hours before bed to improve sleep quality. Maybe it's strength training twice this week instead of once. Start where you are, build slowly, stack wins, because your brain and body want to adapt. They're wired for progress if you give them the right signal repeatedly. And more than anything, remember, this isn't just about appearance. It's about creating a body and mind that can go the distance, that can carry you through your life with energy, clarity, and strength. If this video gave you something useful, a tool, a perspective, or just a nudge, I'd be honored if you'd give it a like, drop a comment with what you're working on, and subscribe to join us. This community is about more than content. It's about commitment to science, to growth, and to becoming the kind of person who shows up for themselves and others over and over again. You don't need to be extreme. You just need to be consistent. And today, right now, is the perfect time to begin.